After 45 minutes, when Barcelona went into halftime 0-0 for the third straight time in April, in only their third match in April, I thought that I would struggle to get to 5 headlines today. I figured I would mainly be focusing on that Jose Luis Morales run from the first 45 minutes. It was an incredible run by Morales, where someone finally dribbled past Araujo. Alba almost committed an earlier penalty than the 3 we saw afterwards. Ter Stegen got just enough on it, and Eric Garcia saved it off the line. But we can't focus on that in a headline because this match had everything. So much happening, score lines going back and forth like a game of ping pong, and ultimately Barcelona were the victors. So without further ado, here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-2 victory over Levante on the road. One is come back again. I don't mean to get all narrative based or whatever, but I think there is something to a team that can come back this many times and has that fight and that will, that desire to get the points, regardless of who the opposition is, regardless of on the road, at home, and the stakes of the game. It's unfair to Koeman and Valverde to create some kind of revisionist history that this team didn't fight at them, that this team didn't have comebacks under them. Just this season under Koeman, this team had come back with goals in the 83rd minute or later on 4 different occasions. So there is credit to those managers for getting something out of their teams. But we're talking about an entirely different ballgame now here under Xavi. Will the players grow tired of his demands next season? Maybe, but that's next season's problem. Because right now, this team wants to play for Xavi. They want to get those 3 points, and they're fighting until the final whistle, not giving up and conceding what a result is. And if you get the sense that Barca keep doing this over and over again, well, you're right. Courtesy of Clement Lenglet, tonight was Barca's 11th goal scored from the 84th minute or later under Xavi. 5 of those 10 have come from Luuk de Jong, who hadn't even played in 5 matches. 4 of his 5 late goals have come in stoppage time. Luuk de Jong, on loan from Sevilla, probably won't be at the club next season. It just doesn't make sense for what we know that he truly is. But for a guy that had turned back into a pumpkin mid-season and looked like he was just going to stay a pumpkin because that's what he was at Sevilla, he is certainly, well, not to say he's Cinderella, the belle of the ball, but once again, all the lights, all the glimmer, maybe the glass slipper is for Luuk de Jong because he once more came up big in this moment. All 3 of these Barca goals were as simple and easy as you like, with Dembélé finding Aubameyang for the first header, and then we'll talk about the Gavi Pedri one in a second here, but then the winner coming from the boot of Alba, a really good cross in, and Luuk de Jong, that one was set up. He's not the fastest, but he went from A to B. He had a spot he knew he had to get to, and Alba delivered it to that spot on a dime, and Luuk de Jong did what he did best, and he found that near post, exactly that little spot he had to find to get it past the goalkeeper. He does just that, and Barcelona win once more on the back of Luuk de Jong. Again, it will just be a footnote of a season for one player who came on loan that probably will not have a future next year at the club, but certainly Luuk de Jong has written his name in the history books of Barcelona, and I think that's something that those of us who are watching now will be able to talk about for quite some time in the future. So go on, Luuk de Jong. I want to thank OneFootball for sponsoring this video. OneFootball is the app I use to keep myself up to date on all things FC Barcelona, everything I need to know, as well as check on every other team that Alemany could be scouting right now for a big summer transfer window. With a custom-tailored homepage, stay up to date with breaking news, live scores, and even transfer news. While on the go, you can check with matches in live time and watch videos afterwards. Use the link in the description for a free download of OneFootball on Android or iOS to put all of your football in one place. And you'll help out a tiny Barca channel too. Thanks to OneFootball again for sponsoring this video. Now back to the Barca business. 2 is substitutions again. There are roses and thorns for all the substitutes in this game. And just like against Eintracht Frankfurt, substitutions decided this game. And actually, it could have been for better or worse this time around. We know that Pedri and Gavi, what they did when they came on. But it wasn't just those 2. Lenglet being at fault for the penalty that Barca conceded, and Dani Gomes for Levante drawing said penalty. And oh yeah, again, that Luuk de Jong scoring the winner. Here's the concerning part. It's Barcelona's second slow start in a row, though, that needed substitutes to change the game. 8 minutes went by at the start of this contest before Barcelona really had any sustained possession in Levante's half. No Pedri and no Gavi this time, so yeah, the silver lining is that Xavi is still rotating at this point in the season to keep guys fresh for when the lights are going to get even brighter in the Europa League and some of those other quote-unquote big matches in the Liga. But it is a bit concerning for Nico here. His first, we'll say, nice play in the game came in the 45th minute where he dribbled himself out of trouble. But by and large, Nico was completely absent in this competition, to the point where he was so ineffective on the right side as the right interior when this match began that Xavi had to put him over on the left. I mean, almost hide him over on the left and have Alba and Ferran Torres be the ones to bail him out. But he wasn't combining it all with Ferran Torres. Nothing was coming down Barca's left. And that meant Levante were able to just put all their focus on that right wing. And one of the reasons for Barcelona's slow start was that Levante were unafraid at home. They looked like the team desperate to stay up. Obviously, they have more to play for, honestly, even with Barca fighting for top four. Levante went right at Barca from the opening whistle, the fullbacks pushing high, but keeping their shape to not allow Barca to break down the wings. But as far as the substitutes go, here are the positives. Well, Pedri and Gavi do certainly sum it up, just like Frenkie de Jong and Dembélé flipped that match on its head midweek. Those two pushed up higher and took on the opposition. They pressed well together, really pressed well together. For that second goal, it's Gavi the one who brings the pressure and turns the opposition over. I think that was clear instruction for Xavi in ways that Frenkie and Nico maybe didn't have that same instruction to go as hard and play as high up the field. And again, that was all summed up with that second goal. Gavi then splitting the two defenders, the square ball to Pedri, which is a much harder finish, by the way, by Pedri than you'd think. There was another play a few minutes later, too, that really impressed me from Gavi, where he held off 3 Levante players and almost like musical chair, just kind of went around, looked for his opening, and he finally found in that circle around him that one sliver to get out of trouble. And so Gavi, for all of that, I don't think he has the same technical reputation because of all the other things he does with the fight and the desire and all those intangibles. I do think we take away a little bit of just how good this kid is technically as well, because he is phenomenal. And this is one of the better appearances as far as on the ball that we have seen from Gavi this season. 3 is missing PK. Dani Alves getting hobbled in that first half certainly did not help things, especially when you have a 38-year-old who's, again, not too fast anyway, but then when you take away some of his speed, take away some of the things he could physically do, well, it kind of means you're almost half a man down at that point in the competition. As much as Dani Alves does with at least his positioning and his understanding where he needs to be on the field, can open up some spaces just by being a living, breathing body as a threat. But even aside from Dani Alves, that back line did have some concerns today. Eric Garcia gave up the second penalty, but I thought he was even better than decent at the back for the second straight game. You can see what we've been listening to in interviews. Without PK, Araujo might be the emotional leader, but Garcia is a tactical leader back there. And aside from the play where Morales sent him back to Barca B, Araujo was as solid as ever in that match. Ter Stegen backed them up. But for the concerning parts, Alves' defensive job, not great, and Alves was non-existent. When things weren't working for Dembélé offensively, he also wasn't tracking back with the same ferocity we've seen from him in recent weeks. When Lenglet came on, it was all hands on deck back there, and certainly this game could have ended 4-3 in Levante's way if Levante were able to have the same fight they did in the first half. And that too was the moment when you saw that PK was missing, and that this team needed PK at this juncture, and how important that free agent transfer for Christensen is. I don't think Christensen, as I keep saying, is coming in to replace PK, Garcia, and Araujo next season. He is there to become either the fourth center back or maybe the third center back, and PK might be rotated. One of them might get injured for a long time next season, and Araujo could also play as the right back, which we saw him flip over to in this game. So having that depth at the back line next year is going to be important for this team to try to compete across all competitions. 4 is credit to Levante. This is a team that always plays Barcelona tough, always leads to a lot of goals this affair. And as much as Barcelona coasted, I say coasted in that match with the exception of those 3 almost perfect goals that they scored, I also have to give credit to Levante's game plan. And I don't know why they don't use that similar game plan in every match they play. They would probably have stayed up if they decided to play like that. It was a really good move to have 3 players around Dembélé at all times. The understanding is that Barca are going to have a strong side on the left side, but with Nico in that midfield, Levante, within the first 3 or 4 minutes, were unafraid of Nico beating them up through the middle. And the same thing with De Jong. De Jong isn't really going to deliver that final ball and break through that tight line of that 5-3-2. So they weren't too concerned with those passes. For Levante, it was all about shutting down the wings. Don't allow Jordi Alba to get in behind you and beat you, and they didn't. And don't allow Dembélé to be in 1v1 situations, of which they did not concede either. Son, Campagna, and Vezzo, with Pepelu trying to cut down the passing lane to Nico, then to De Jong, who switched over to the right side, as I said. Those 3 were pretty fantastic, plus that help from Pepelu to make sure Dembélé, even when he was on the ball, he was constantly crowded out. And again, Barca's left side being largely ineffective, Nico and Ferran Torres just weren't combining at all, even though Torres' movement was actually pretty decent in that match. Aubameyang was, I think in the first half and a bit in the second before his goal, was the one who was missing in action today. He just wasn't finding the space he needed to. He was also dealing with 5 at the back with 2 defensive midfielders and then a third midfielder that I would not call an attacking midfielder, another one who was more even box to box with 2 defensive midfielders behind him. So Levante they weren't even playing a low block per se, but they were playing a medium block that was well fortified. And as I said before, credit to Levante for actually having a game plan that was looking like it was going to work, if not for Barcelona having just superior talent and superior players. And 5 is closer to the Champions League. Speaking of superior players, we knew from the start of this season, and especially after January with those new additions, that this team always had the talent and always was deep enough, as long as guys stayed healthy, to make the Champions League. Even when things were really, really down, there was always this understanding that it's not a foregone conclusion that Barca were going to get there. They had to get the results, but this team, with the right direction, we're going to get those results. Also, with Atletico Madrid dropping points this weekend to Mallorca and losing in that match on the road, Barcelona are in a really good spot to definitely finish top 4 and potentially even finish top 2. Barcelona is now in second over Sevilla with a game in hand. If they beat Rayo in that extra game, that means they're 6 points clear of Atleti in 4th and 7 points clear of Real Betis in 5th. If Madrid, with those 12 points ahead, is unreachable, then so is the drop to 5th for Barca, especially the way this unbeaten streak is going. Some players struggled today. Different players have had down days when the opposition game plan is designed to foil just them. But this team collectively has had just enough guys to do the job to get result after result after result. Next up this week is Eintracht Frankfurt in a game that really truly matters. I say that with quotes because it's the one that decides whether or not they move on in the Europa League. But because we didn't even see him on the bench of that being Ansu Fati, I don't expect to see him in this do or die Europa League match either. Maybe he does make the bench. Maybe, depending on the scoreline, he does get maybe 10 to 15 minutes at the end of it, but it will be just more ceremonial at the Camp Nou than anything else. I don't expect him to be the guy that you say, hey, we need Ansu Fati to score a goal or make the difference in that match. Don't put those expectations on him for that. But as I did say last week, I think with confidence, Barcelona will move on to the semifinals of the Europa League. I think a lot went right for Eintracht Frankfurt, and just like Levante today, they had a really good game plan against Barcelona, and at home with that crowd roaring, there was some fight, there was some desire to them, and I think they are going to be taken out of that game at the Camp Nou, especially when Xavi has had 90 minutes to dissect exactly what they did right. I think Eintracht Frankfurt got it absolutely 100% correct against Barcelona, and they still just managed a 1-1 against Blaugrana. So I do think Barcelona are in a really good position to move on. But before that, we do have a podcast coming out tomorrow, and make sure you don't miss any of the other videos on this channel. So give us a like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. As always, until next time, Forza Barca.